Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're joined now by retired Colonel Wilson Ijide, who is a doctor of Industrial Organisational Psychology. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Chabalani.
Well, we several times when these kind of scenarios occur where bombs explode within communities like that, we hear some persons in authority say, look, they're clutching onto straws. These are activities of a sect that is fizzling out. We know that they've given that deadline. The president, they say, look, by end of this year, they should go ahead and just crush it, wipe it out. But many don't know how long they will stop this suicide bombings. Do you see this as activities of one who or a group that are clutching onto straws?
First of all, Chamberlain, let me express my deep condolence and sincere sympathy to all the victims of the various suicide attacks, especially the one that just happened in Nyanya and Kuje. I know the families are going through difficult times. I express my condolence to them. Now to your question, when it comes to insurgency, I think Nigeria by now should be getting to understand the true nature of what insurgency is all about. When it started, it was like a child's play. People thought it was something that you could just wish away, either by abuses and all kinds of sentiments and emotions, instead of looking at exactly what the issues are, and even looking or researching into what insurgency has been all over the world globally. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I'll tell you that it's an ideology. Insurgency is based on ideology. There's a motive. So until you tackle that motive and remove that motive, it is likely to resurface. No matter how you decimate them, no matter how you attack them, new ones could also come up. So we must have a broad and a holistic picture of the kind of challenge that this country is facing, so that we can deal with it more decisively and more, comprehensively. That's the way I look at it.
You know, you make it sound, the way you make it sound is more or less like a bad culture of a certain group of persons. Yeah. And you're saying that we should look towards taking that mindset or that attitude or culture of the people. How do we go about that? Putting on your psychologist's cap.
Well, talking about what has been done in the past, research has been conducted in the past. That is in the area of what we call media operations, but more especially psychological warfare. Other people may call it propaganda or that. Now, you research into the nature of these people. So it enables you to come up with a program of how to re-educate them and reorientate them, because it all is about the orientation, about indoctrination. All kinds of mind control mechanisms are used to get these people. In fact, the first people that start this kind of insurgency have their own ideology. Let's bring it home to Boko Haram, which we are talking about. How did it start? It started with Mohammed Yusuf. What was he preaching? In 2003, he came up, he was preaching an ideology. He said the Nigerian state was too corrupt, that we needed an Islamic state. As if that would take care of the corruption, which means it's an ideology that is a bit warped. But it has become a way, it has become an engine to galvanize a lot of people to accept that, yes, this is what we must do. Then, of course, you look at it from the religious angle, too. They tell you it's like it is the doctrine of martyrdom stood upside down. When the real martyrdom we knew was about people giving their life for what they believe in, that you kill me, I'm not going to change. In this type of insurgency that we have, this type of ideology, it is you going there to kill yourself and kill other people along with you. So it's like standing the philosophy of martyrdom upside down. Now you ask me, how do we go about dealing with it ideologically? Ideologically, when I say we should deal with ideology, it does not mean it's ideologically. It must be a holistic approach. That is just one angle. So it is that we should put all strategies in place. Usually when you talk about insurgency, there are two broad strategies you use in dealing with insurgency. One you call de-escalation and containment in situ. The containment in situ is the military strategy. And the strategy of all our security agencies put in place, roadblocks, checkpoints, cordon and search, looking at getting information to know where they have their arms and whatever.
Do those ones work? Roadblock, checkpoints?
Yeah, they do work, because you can never tell. You see, when it comes to insurgency, there's a high probability that most of these things they are doing will have prevented so many incidents that will have happened, but you will never get to know.
No, but many are arguing that. Sorry to hold up to that one.
Yeah.
So don't lose your train of thought for the next point.
Yes.
Because the argument there is they thought that by now we should have moved to the next stage. Because if this has been around for a while, get to the next stage, and then other than lump people up in those traffic bottleneck, which is a risk by itself.
Beautiful. When you talk about moving to the next stage, when you say move to the next stage is not about one stage ending here, another one starting. When I say two strategy, it does not mean that one is coming after the other. They are supposed to be all in one. The containment strategy is the one I tell you is mostly linked with the security forces, the military, the police, immigration, and all that. That is the containment institute. But the de-escalation has to do with other broad strategies, a combination of strategies like diplomatic, economic, informational, which I call psychological operation and all that. So the economic strategy would mean that you identify the financial base of insurgents.
Very key here.
Very key. The financial base of insurgents. I wonder for the past 6 years why we have not been able to really hit at the financial base of the insurgents.
Even though they tell us time and again, we will expose sponsors of Boko Haram.
Yes, we've had that this morning. We had it this morning. Yes, when you were interviewing, I think, was it in the papers? Yes, yes, exactly. So that is one area that is key.
Because if we can't do that, it makes nonsense of the entire effort of the military.
Because as long as you continue to fund these insurgents, they will continue to have the power and the capability to strike and choose the time they want to strike and choose the location they want to strike.
Is it difficult to unearth the sponsors of terror?
Well, if we put in all efforts, I think we can get at it. You know, I've also listened to some folks that have talked about the fact that the Nigerian military has been very effective outside and seem not to be quite so in. I think that has been a very warped argument from my own experience.
Why?
When you talk about peace support operations, when we go out for peace support operations, it's a completely different game from fighting insurgency in your own country. Because there are so many dynamics that play out here when you are fighting at home. You have individuals who are sympathetic to those same people who are fighting the cause within the same military or the same security forces. Those ones are going to sabotage you. And we have had such cases. When you go back to the issues of the court martial that have been had in the past, such cases came up. So those are the things that will also mitigate the successes of the military.
You know, when I talk about moving to the next stage,
yes,
I was referring to certain components of intelligence gathering.
Yeah.
For instance, do we have this database? Can our people identify people? And then say, no, I saw this person. This is how this person looks. Do we have those kind of persons who are out there to do all this?
Chabale, that is a very beautiful question. In fact, during your discussion with the policeman, Wilson Ijide from Abuja, that thing came to my mind. You see, identification is one thing that we need, and it should start right from kindergarten. You understand? The ability to identify and describe is very, very key. We in the military are trained to that extent, but in this kind of war, you need more than the military knowledge of identification. The population itself should have that ability to be able. I'm thinking about now, we should even have flyers that should come from security forces that will educate civilians as to, if he looks like this, it's likely to be a terrorist. If he dresses like this, it's likely to be a terrorist. If he speaks like this, I think by now we should have a data like that to be able to educate the population as to what to look out for.
But the terrorists will also still be in the same population, so they most likely will be gleaning the information as well.
No, yeah, of course, they will still be getting, but then, even at that, there's no way you are going to foreclose that information completely if you really want to deal with them. So that is a risk balance, a risk factor in the whole thing. But then chances are that even if you give that information to the public, they may not know. And even if they know, they may not completely change. They will still leave traces of some of those information that you have given out, so that would still be able to act as a countermeasure.
I've been looking at the response of the federal government, though, in the wake of terror attacks shortly after the president assumed power. There was increased wave of attacks, it would seem, and one of the responses was that this is the last pangs of a dying group or a dying organization. Is this something that you buy into, or is the federal government employing some psychological help here in this instance? Is this really something about Boko Haram dying off?
I wouldn't say it's a kind of psychological help that the federal government is employing. One of the fundamental things about psychology is that we have individual differences. People see things from different angles. That might be the interpretation of the federal government. But I can tell you from knowledge of history and research that one has conducted that it might also be, you see, in battle, insurgents also have their own tricks. They can even feign that they are almost gone. So to enable you lose your guard, then they strike you. But somebody can buy into it thinking that, oh, okay, yeah, we are dealing with them. So it's neither here nor there.
So what do we make of this attack in the wake of that?
This particular attack, the recent one.
Yeah.
You see, the recent one is like a statement that we are still here. Not only that we are still here, we can even envelope you. Because if you look at it, it's very informative. They struck at Nyanya and they struck at Kuje. That is like striking at the north and striking at the south. That is like to tell you we are still around and we still have this capability. They will always do that. They will always do that. But we must not be scared. In fact, one of the solutions to the problem is that for a citizenry that is dedicated and committed and say, we will never succumb. A strong will, a determined citizenry.
I think that